The County Board of Commissioners is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bradham.
Here.
Maris Castillo.
Here.
McDonough.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Here.
Carter.
Here. Thank you very much. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The agenda of our August 17th meeting is before you.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Are there any comments on the agenda? If not, we'll call the roll. Thank you.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Bradham.
Aye.
Maris Castillo.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye, thank you, and the agenda is passed. The minutes are before you from August 10th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on the minutes? We'll call the roll. Thank you.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Bradham.
Aye.
Maris Castillo.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye, thank you. I'll turn to County Manager O'Connor for our COVID update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Good morning. We have a bit of a bifurcated, potentially COVID conversation today, seeing as how the policy item up for action around vaccines and testing is later on the agenda. So I'm not going to do a full-fledged update on that now. We can talk specifically about that then. However, I will acknowledge if questions come up, we can answer them now as well, if it pleases the board. We'll turn it over directly to the public health team, though, to provide updates on case numbers and other public health information at this time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Again, it's a pleasure to be with you on this Tuesday morning. I'm just going to briefly give you an update on the numbers in terms of cases that we're seeing here in Ramsey County. About 2 weeks ago, we introduced a new data tool for your review. It's the CDC's data tracker. Just as a reminder, this tool measures both 7-day rolling cases in our community as well as positivity, so it's a combined measure. And you can see since in the 2 weeks since we've actually introduced this metric, Ramsey County is now in a high state of transmission, along with the rest of the 7-county metro and many of our surrounding jurisdictions nationwide. We're clearly seeing an impact here, based on the Delta variant. A significant amount of transmission here in Minnesota. You will see the same upward trend in terms of our cases if you take a look at our situation update. Looking more closely at the data, again, in comparison with the weekly case rate that we saw last year, of course, we didn't have vaccine. We're certainly stifling transmission due to vaccine, but at the same time, again, I think what we're noticing here in terms of this pronounced uptick is the result of the Delta variant. Again, we're in our county partners when we look at positivity and numbers of tests per week. I want to share a little bit of brighter information, of course. When we take a look at our vaccine dashboard, you will see a slight increase in terms of demand for vaccine. I think that this demand is playing out in part because of our newly launched incentive program, as well as the fear from Delta, obviously. So last week, we gave about 550 vaccines, and in prior weeks, we had much lower uptake, about half of that. So we are happy to see that increased demand. Again, we are seeing more asks for community vaccine clinics. We're glad to support those when we can. Just happy to do our part to get vaccine out to our constituents. I also want to share, excuse me, apologies for the scrolling. We are finally starting to see better saturation across all zip codes in Ramsey County. So although we still have lower numbers in a couple of zip codes around the city center, we are moving that needle. Again, it's around 1 to 2 percentage points each week, but that's a positive measure for your attention. You know, with this Delta surge clearly continuing, I think it makes sense that the FDA did go ahead and approve a third mRNA shot for immunocompromised individuals. That occurred last week. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pass the mic to my colleague, Dr. Ogawa, to share a little bit more about that decision. Thank you.
Chair Carter, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor. There's been lots of discussion in the past week as the FDA approved for a third dose for of the mRNA vaccine for immune-compromised individuals. The FDA was driven to do this, and the CDC and the ACIP to support it, based on some data and some, quite frankly, some inferences around risk, as well as some observational studies that are looking now at the cases of hospitalized individuals who have been fully vaccinated. So for a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit about the data, which is about numbers, and so I'm going to geek out a little bit, as Incident Commander Anderson often likes to say. What we know about the mRNA vaccines is that in immune-compromised individuals, and when I say immune-compromised, it's a very defined number of individuals. It's those with cancer currently being treated. It's those with untreated or inadequately treated HIV. It's also those with solid organ transplant who have to take severely immune-compromising drugs. And then it's also individuals who are on known immunocompromising drugs for other systems or diseases as well. When we look at the vaccine efficacy for them versus the rest of the public, it can be as low as, unfortunately, 59% effective, given 2 doses for them, and as high as 75% effective. So it's significantly less effective than the 90 to 95% that we see in what we would consider immune-competent individuals. Because of that, the makers do believe that a third dose, and I am being careful about the wording here. This is not a booster. This is a third in a series for moderately and severely immune-compromised individuals, will raise their ability to fight. The reality is we haven't looked at all of the data yet, though, and we don't have comparative studies yet. But the recommendations are that they get a third in the series. The other reason that they're doing this is when we look at the breakthrough cases, which the CDC is monitoring in hospitalized individuals. While that's a low percent, we've talked about this number before, 1% of the hospitalized cases at the highest level usually are those who are fully vaccinated. But when we look at those cases, 45% of those cases are individuals who are immune compromised. So in other words, we know that the vaccine efficacy is lower, and we're seeing more of them in the hospital after they've received 2 doses. So the recommendation by the FDA, the ACIP, is that they get a third dose for us to help boost their immunity. As of last night, the FDA and the CDC are talking about boosters now for immune-competent individuals. This is different. This is not individuals who have been defined, and this is not we don't have as much data on the use of boosters. And so as a county, as a public health department, we're reserving judgment on the need for boosters for immune-competent individuals. Some of the reasons are that we still believe that immune-competent people have the ability to recognize the virus when it sees it again. And so if there's natural immunity, or if there's immunity from the initial 2 shots, they're less likely to get and pass the virus, or at least get sick with it. And we're not seeing as many individuals hospitalized. The other thing that gives us pause is that we have up to potentially still a quarter of our constituents who haven't received their first dose. And while we don't have we do have a lack of supply ultimately, and we have a lack of manpower to get those doses out. And so it gives us pause. Doesn't mean we're not going to provide those booster shots if they are fully approved, but we're going to think carefully about who gets the vaccine, when, and how. And so we're thinking about it. It's important, but we also are hoping that we get approval for those under 12 soon. And again, we will have a supply issue if we have people rushing to get their third dose, and we're trying to get people their first doses. So we're keeping this all in mind. It's important. We're recognizing it. We're watching it. But our focus at our vaccine sites are first and second doses for individuals within our county who need those vaccines. I'm going to turn it over to my boss. Still getting used to that. Sarah Hawley now.
And Director Holly, before you start, I'd like to call on Commissioner Reinhardt for a question.
This is going to sound like a silly question, but I am still confused about, when you talk about the first shot, the second shot, the third shot, are they all the same or are they different doses?
Yeah, they are, Commissioner Reinhardt, Chair Carter, they are all the same. They're the same dose. We also try very hard to get the same mRNA for that third dose.
What's mRNA?
Messenger RNA dose. So that means Pfizer and Moderna. Thank you. You also bring up an important point that I didn't mention earlier, and that is that because the immune-compromised individuals are moderately and severely immune-compromised, and many of them are in that realm because they're either solid organ transplant patients, they have chronic diseases that require immune-compromising medications. They are very connected, they're dialysis patients, they are very connected to our healthcare system. And we are really asking and pressuring our healthcare system to accept and take care of those patients and their third doses appropriately, because that's where they're connected the most. Now, we'll still be the safety net for others who may not have that access, but for this population, which also is really only about 3% of our population, of our adult population, so it shouldn't be a large number, we're asking that healthcare really step up and take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Director Holly.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager. A lot of questions, right, about what we've learned as of last night. I have a bit of good news. I'll continue on that trend, and then we can get back to questions also this morning. First, I just want to thank the board. We have taken good care and proactive measures towards reducing the spread of COVID-19 and the highly contagious Delta variant recently with the recent mask requirement and the employee vaccine and testing requirement. So thank you for that. We appreciate that on behalf of public health and I think our community and our employee community. We're hopeful, as Incident Commander Anderson mentioned this morning, that the FDA may lift the emergency use authorization for Pfizer, so 12 plus, hopefully this September. We think full authorization may go a long way at reducing hesitation among individuals who remain unvaccinated. So that's a bit of good news. We are also glad for the news from our state partners that their own vaccine and testing requirement will hopefully happen soon. By supporting vaccination among our employee groups, we believe we can reduce transmission in our community. So that's a bit of good news. I want to shift to schools now. We continue to connect with our school districts on mask requirements. I want to say thank you to William Moore and Dr. Ogawa for their guidance and participation in those conversations with our local partners last week. Public Health issued guidance for districts to use as they start to get questions from staff, families, caregivers, and the general public about masking indoors. St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health remains in full support and backing of the latest CDC guidance, encouraging universal masking for all of those working and attending or visiting our K-12 schools. So that's a bit of good news. Our vaccine incentive initiative, as Incident Commander Anderson mentioned, launched last Friday. And on Saturday, we had a great turnout at Oxford Community Center site, which typically sees probably less than 40 people on a weekly basis. But our team served at least 89 people at that site on Saturday. So that's good news as we see and plan for this trend across our state and with our upcoming clinic sites. This week, I just want to mention for our community, if you're listening, this week there are many opportunities to receive a vaccine and incentive at our Arlington Hills Community Center site on the 19th, at Oxford on the 21st, and we also still have our school sites, so at Harding on the 17th and Washington Tech on the 18th. And we have a number of pop-up sites, as Incident Commander Anderson mentioned this morning. So for more information on the places where you can get a vaccine, your first or second dose, please visit the Ramsey County website. As of yesterday, MDH did extend its $100 reward through August 22nd. So that's another bit of good news. The reward request must be submitted to the Minnesota Department of Health by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, August 22nd. So make sure if you've recently received a vaccine, please make sure that you get that information into the Minnesota Department of Health. Lastly, the Minnesota State Fair. First, I just want to say a big thank you to our vaccine and testing support branch. They've done an incredible job of providing vaccines in our community throughout this time and also testing. So big shout out to Mark and his team. St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health will partner with the Minnesota Department of Health to offer vaccinations at the Minnesota State Fair this year. So we're really excited about that. Our role in this is, as a partner, we'll provide some equipment and support for non-clinical staff, and we are also working with current partners to ensure that there are culturally specific outreach and engagement opportunities in education during the State Fair. So we're really happy about that partnership. Thank you.
On that point, I believe Commissioner Ortega has a question or comment. Is it on that point? Please go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah, with the schools and meetings you've had with the schools, are there any special efforts to target the parents of kids, which is different from the state fair and all of that? I mean, some of my friends that are teachers, and including my daughter, who's a teacher, they're kind of surprised by the fact that there are a lot of parents that, in summer school, for example, that are not vaccinated. So I'm just raising the question if there's a way to target the parents of the kids.
Who have not been vaccinated, Commissioner Ortega?
Well, they're surprised by the fact that so many of the parents of their kids are not vaccinated,
That's correct.
given all the efforts that everybody's putting through.
I think the increased promotion, especially of our school sites, Harding and Washington Tech, will be key. One thing that we are looking to launch and focus based on the conversation here with the board is kind of reviving our Mask for Everyone initiative to focus on K through 12 students and our children who are 12 and under who can't get vaccinated. So we're going to try to relaunch that in the next week to see if we can get more masks out to families and children who don't have access. I think, working with our school partners is going to be key here to make sure that they have the masks that they need for the 12 and under population. And then also just encouraging parents who are unvaccinated to seek those school sites. And as Incident Commander Anderson mentioned, having those impromptu pop-up sites where we're seeing where we don't have a large uptick of vaccination in certain communities. I will mention that we are working to get more messaging targeted to families and parents. I think on both sides, people that are concerned about mask use in schools, and then folks that want to see more people vaccinated, and then just making sure that we're available for those questions around hesitancy and more information. So I think we are going to make a concerted effort to target our K through 12 families and really work in partnership with the districts as they navigate that space.
Would there be, Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
would there be any efforts to vaccinate parents right at the school as they come in?
Yeah, so, part of our work with the schools directly has been from the beginning that we were targeting whole families, that all of our outreach went to parents, to students, relying on there was a wonderful article, and I'll just mention, there was a wonderful article about a child encouraging his mom to get vaccinated recently for his birthday. And so we're really working to get as much information to everyone so that families can make the best decisions for their family. But all of our sites that we hold at schools are for everyone, adults down to the age of 12. We spread to do Pfizer for that reason, all of those things. We're looking at working with the schools for all of the back to school situations as well. So when parents have to come in for, forms and things like that. And again, just making sure that our messaging is getting out to whole families to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
I'll catch one more question here. Commissioner Fretham.
And it's probably for Dr. Ogawa. Sorry, walking all the way back. Do you have any, is there any updated information about, you talked about a potential third booster for people who received the mRNA vaccines. What about those who received Johnson & Johnson? Is there anything coming out on mixing vaccines?
Yeah, there isn't a recommendation yet about Johnson & Johnson. And the data will be forthcoming. I don't want to guess on this one. We believe that probably the numbers of Johnson & Johnson are lower overall, just because it was the most recent to be brought out. The messenger RNA vaccines had much higher uptake in general. But we'll be, again, watching that carefully. We have, again, enough vaccine right now to be providing the clinics that we are, and additional doses if we need to, but we just want to be cautious. So, but we have plenty of Johnson & Johnson as well.
Thank you. And we'll proceed.
I think we're at the point of questions and
I'm
discussion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. Looking to commissioners, we have no further questions here. Appreciate your update, County Manager.
Nothing else from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. As is customary, we'll ask for our moment of meditation prior to proceeding. Thank you. Thank you again. Sorry, it could not be longer. But as we continue to have the perils that we do within our community in fighting COVID-19, the additional variant, concerns, and the work that we are doing, we continue to ask for that moment. We are going to move on to our administrative items. We have a few items. Commissioner McDonough, would you take us through them, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move item 3, terms of collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 320 probation officers for the year 2021. Item number 4, joint powers agreement with the State of Minnesota, Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to utilize the Minnesota Criminal Justice Data Communications Network. Item number 5, American Rescue Plan Act funds for the advancement of Ramsey County economic competitiveness and inclusion plan.
Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Ortega, for your second. I appreciate it. Are there any comments or questions on any of the items? Thank you very much. I'll ask then that the clerk please call the roll.
McDonough?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Fretham?
Aye.
Modis Castillo?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye. And thank you very, very much. Significant work moving forward. Of course, as we look at contracts that are being approved, at the agreement with the BCA for data and information, at our American Rescue Plan Act funds that we talked substantially about last week. And we did take our vote. Thank you. So we will move on to our big policy item today on vaccine and testing protocols and incentives. We've requested that this information come back to the board, and for that reason, I'll call on County Manager O'Connor again.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. We've had extensive discussion the past 2 weeks, so I'll keep it brief and answer any questions you may have, but hopefully you see a request here that reflects the discussion of the past few weeks. I'll also acknowledge, having heard from a number of employees over the last week who have strong questions or concerns, feelings along the way. I want to acknowledge that as part of these processes, and I appreciate the way in which all individuals reached out to say they understand the difficulty in the scenario we're in. Well wishes actually often extended toward the board and the work we do together about navigating uncharted waters, and then having questions about trying to better understand the landscape, particularly around the efficacy and safety of vaccines, part of what we have heard here a lot, right? And so we are standing up a frequently asked questions section on the RamseyNet section of the website for employees, where we're taking the questions that come in and we're going to put answers out. We're working with public health and human resources on those questions as we go. We've been engaged with our labor partners as well on some of the initial questions around implementation, and we're doing that work around the impacts of a policy or a potential policy as we move forward. So I think those are big pieces. On the recommendation side, it's an employee incentive program for all employees who provide information regarding their COVID-19 vaccine status. We talked about that last week. Supporting any testing or auditing infrastructure required to effectively administer the program is also tied in. Asking for $1 million in ARPA funding or other federal coronavirus funds, to support this. It may not be ARPA, actually. Directing the county manager to implement a requirement that all Ramsey County employees be vaccinated or submit to regular testing, which will be weekly or more frequent, as we heard from Dr. Ogawa, if the situation demanded it. And finally, the requirement to provide 30 days notice to the organization prior to implementation, which aligns with the timelines we've talked about before and ensures an awareness piece that goes out, and the county board would be notified at that same period of time. I'd stand for any questions, Madam Chair.
And before we take questions, I will ask for a motion to get it on the table.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. The motion and the second. We are in discussion. I have a question, I believe, from Commissioner Fretham, and then Commissioner McGuire. Go ahead. I see everybody's hands.
So I just want to make sure we don't end up in an issue that I think happened to a county board in Michigan. Since we're also, as board members, Ramsey County employees, I'm assuming we will need to submit our information, but I don't think we necessarily need the incentive dollars, nor do I think we may be able to get them. So I just want to make sure that we make that really clear. But if any of my colleagues have concerns about that, well, we can discuss.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Fretham, actually, and this wasn't one of the things on top of mind, but having gone through this before, elected officials actually inhabit a different space in terms of employment status, and so technically you would not qualify for the incentive the way this was designed.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to make sure.
I appreciate the question. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just thank you, County Manager, and everyone who's had, so much work to be done in this. I'm just curious, generally are the employees pretty, you said we'd be getting questions, but we haven't been getting a lot of pushback, or could you just talk a little bit about how much maybe we could help if there is pushback, or what the scene is looking like?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, thank you for the question. I would say, unlike in the flexible work conversation today, where we've heard from 2,000 employees and then had focus groups, in this case, we've heard from a few dozen employees, which is a very different, I wouldn't consider that a representative sample of your organization. Also, I would assume, without fully having knowledge, that a majority of our employees are vaccinated and therefore would probably support the idea of a vaccination effort. In initial conversations with labor partners as well, while there are questions around implementation, I want to acknowledge their feelings of positivity around keeping employees safe, ensuring they're safe in the discharge of their duties in the workplace. And I don't want to speak for them, but those are just some of the broader implications that we've heard and seen along the way, and the appreciation of thinking those parts through. So I think that's part of it. What I would say to the other side, though, is there remains a lot of information or disinformation around vaccines and what is out there that comes up. And we need to continue to talk that through. There are, for example, one of the questions that most frequently gets asked is vaccinated individuals can also be carriers of COVID, so why are you only testing non-vaccinated individuals? This will be first question on the FAQ. Now it will be for sure, but when you go to the CDC website and you read it, there is an answer there from the CDC about who is recommended for regularity of testing and what that looks like, and it does not include everybody the same. And so when we say we're following the best advice that we are getting through our organization and from the federal government on down, there may be some level of disagreement as to whether we should believe the CDC, but those are the types of questions that ultimately we will, and that's our path moving forward. So we'll do what we can to confront that. And then there are some individuals who believe ultimately the freedom of choice around a vaccine is theirs and theirs alone, and that's a more philosophical question than one that I can perfectly answer on an FAQ.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you for that little more expanded version. Thank you.
Commissioner Reinhardt, then Commissioner McDonough.
Thank you. I have a question about the requirement, if they're not vaccinated, to be regularly tested. Are we going to have something as part of our system? How is that going to happen, or is everybody on their own? Are we going to have something set up at within our offices?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, thank you for the question. I'm sorry. Commissioner Reinhardt.
I didn't even notice.
Mr. McGuire, I do know who sits around this table. It's a good question, and part of that is a part of the impact bargaining and implementation approach, so I don't want to presuppose the final outcome, other than to say there's an expectation and a requirement of weekly testing. And as an employer, we'll see what we can do as a part of being as accessible as possible to make this all work, but we need to do it within the cost constraints as outlined in this policy and recommended approach. And we want to hear from employees and balance those needs. The state, for example, in their policy, the initial draft I saw does have some sites that they are saying, they are directing employees to potentially. I don't have anything else there yet, other than to note, this is on the table for us to figure out as we go forward in the final implementation.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I see in the recommendations and the protocols, staying home when sick and such, but I don't see anything specific about if there is a positive test on that employee that chooses not to get vaccinated. Have we worked out exactly what that procedure would be for them to not come to work, of course, but then how they get back to work and what it take for them to get back to work?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McDonough, great question. So that was not needed in here. That would actually be a redundancy of our workplace policies and procedures already developed around a COVID exposure. I actually want to highlight the HR team and public health team who recently have gone through an update to those procedures based on the information that's available, and I have an update to that sitting in my inbox right now. And it expands beyond the employee to the broader area of potential exposure. We will circulate the current guidance back to the board so you can see what that looks like, but it is addressed and it would fit in conjunction with everything here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ortega.
I just wanted to make a comment that I, like everybody else, received a lot of emails from constituents and others, and employees actually. It's all been, from my perspective, pretty positive, even the ones that disagree. And let me just say that the people that might disagree with the policy, I spoke with a lady, and she had been vaccinated. So sometimes it's not an issue about taking the vaccine as maybe a philosophical one. But the bottom line is that most of them have been quite polite in the whole conversation, which was kind of surprising to me to some extent. Usually you have folks that are really excited one way or the other. So I just wanted to make that comment that I think for most folks, even for the ones that don't maybe agree, that it's been a good conversation. I usually run into a half a dozen of folks that are really excited about, by excited I mean vested in their position, and that hasn't been the case. It's been good discussions with folks. So I think the policy, no policy is going to be perfect, but I think it's still in the right direction and accepted by the public.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ortega, I would agree with that sentiment. And actually, today's message to the organization as part of the weekly Tuesday message is appreciating the degree to which we see so many examples of vitriol taking over discussions where there are not 100% clear-cut anything, particularly during a pandemic where you're learning as you go. Mm-hmm. And to see our organization model a culture and behavior that we more broadly would like to see around us has been appreciated. And I just want to acknowledge that piece as we go forward.
Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Madam Chair, I really appreciate this conversation and I do appreciate our leadership in this. And as a number of us are being, of course, invited to different meetings now where there's going to be indoors and where not everyone is going to be required to wear masks. Of course, those of us that are that believe that this is the thing to do to protect others are going to be wearing masks. So I don't know if this is a question for Dr. Ogawa or for just this group about, the temptation to say, well, there's only going to be 20% of us that are going to event, and is that worth it, with the other 80% not wearing them? And well, I'll just say we're heading into a strategic planning session on bridging the divides for AMC tomorrow. And we've been having the mask question about whether we they're not requiring masks. It's up in the northern, it's in Two Harbors, and there's no mask requirement up there. And so everyone's like, well, but we're not going to be judgmental about those who wear masks. I said, well, of course not. We're not going to be judgmental, but the reason we wear masks is to protect everyone else. I said, I just need to keep saying that we are doing this to protect others, not to protect yourself. And so I guess it's going to be one of those, I think we're going to all be making those decisions, but it will be, an interesting, an interesting exercise and experience in how we will, live our values about wearing a mask to protect others, but 80% will not be wearing them to protect others. And so is it still worth it is maybe my question, for just the small number of us that are going to be doing it.
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, let me take a shot at this one, Dr. Ogawa, because you've done a good job of coaching me along the way on this, right?
Yeah.
And this is an important conversation for employees in the organization too, as the world tries to find its way to navigate. I would say two things. It never is harmful to an individual to wear a mask and will provide some modicum of protection, but they're not bulletproof. And you are right to say it's as much about protecting others as yourself. So number one, we would still say, as a Ramsey County employee or elected official or someone tied, or even as a Ramsey County resident, we would strongly recommend you wear a mask for your own individual safety to the degree that it helps provide it. We would also recommend you get vaccinated, as that's a better way to protect yourself,
Right.
particularly from serious COVID. But I'll flip it one other way, which is a moral imperative question. I can't answer for everybody, and I don't mean to, but and if you still have the power of protecting others, ultimately that choice still rests with you, regardless of what everyone else around you does. And at some point, all we can do is do what we can do and hope that others make similar choices.
I really appreciate that, and I just think it was good to talk about it, because I think other people are going to be faced with this decision, and thank you for that. I think it was well said.
I think so as well, and I saw a nod from Dr. Ogawa.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reinhardt, and then we really will be moving
Yeah,
on.
and then we'll move on. I appreciate
Well,
it.
and I do think that it does show respect for others if we wear a mask, and there are times when it's more difficult, because if you're the only one wearing a mask at some place, it feels weird. But it really bothers me, especially because I have two grandchildren that are not old enough to be vaccinated. And it bothers me when I go out and see all the children that are not wearing masks, and clearly, they do, but my grandchildren do, but somehow I think the message is getting lost that this is affecting children now. And so, and not that adults are less valuable, but they don't have a choice. And so it's up to the parents and the people that love them to keep them safe and to model that behavior. And so, and I don't know about, with schools, what they may be doing, but especially for where the children can't be vaccinated yet. I don't know that there's any hybrid options that are being offered. And so it's making it even more difficult for parents and grandparents and just the community. And I think about how, we've virtually wiped out a lot of really horrible diseases because of the vaccinations, and they were just part of what you did for your community. Polio, TB. Yes, those things still exist, but they're not at the level of a pandemic, which is what they were, and other things as well. And so I hope that people think about, and maybe it was, I loved the article about the young man who asked his mother to get vaccinated as his birthday present. Listening to the young people, I think, is going to be incredibly important. And I would hope that it never dawned on me that I would have to worry about being criticized for wearing a mask. Maybe the other way around, at least I would hope that would be the case. But we've just got to do our best to get past the fact that this is about us and only us. It's about everyone else.
Well said, and thank you all for your comments. As we entertain this resolution for vaccine and testing protocols and incentives, we've had good discussion, and we should call the vote. Thank you.
McDonough?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Bretham?
Aye.
Maris Castillo?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye. Thank you very much. The vaccine and testing protocols and incentives have now passed. I want to appreciate also the research, the work, the conversations, the writing, and development of the infrastructure and policy here, as well as the expenditures that will be initiated in order to care for this work. It's been amazing and quick, and we're thankful that we now have our policy.
Thank you.
We'll move to county connections. Again, County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two updates today. The request for developer interest for the Maplewood properties was released yesterday. Separate but concurrent proposals or requests for developer interest were distributed for both the north and the south parcels, and any interested individual or entity can go to ramseycountymeansbusiness.com to access that information as well. Secondly, this is belated, but I wanted to still call them out in a positive way. It was back from the end of July. During the county staff appreciation time period, I wanted to highlight that Ted Schenecker, our Public Works Director, was highlighted by the Minnesota County Engineers Association as the person they put forward to be a part of the Association of Minnesota Counties campaign around county staff doing excellent work. And I know you all see and know the excellent work Ted does. As I was going through a backlog of emails, I came across this as one of those things I didn't get to call out at the time, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Ted, appreciate the work his entire team has done this summer, and I know if he was here, he would say it's reflective of the entire group he's working with, and very proud to see Ramsey County be a part of that campaign at the end of last month. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the update. We'll take the opportunity to go around the table for outside board and committee reports. We'll begin with Commissioner McGuire and wind up with Commissioner McDonough. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things going on in the community. Just a shout out to all the community festivals. New Brighton had their Stockyard Days and their parade last weekend, and so just a great coming together of community and a lot of it outdoors, which is a really good thing. So also our Early Care and Education for Children group, formerly the Child Care Policy Action Team. We're now referring to the ECEC, which is wonderful. That's continuing to meet regularly every few months, and continuing to get a really good turnout of our community partners, where we're strategizing how do we work together to really combine resources that we're getting in from the federal government, and how do we connect with each other on that, and from the state and federal government. So just really good work being done, and another shout out to our newest employee, December, who is heading that work. So thanks to everyone for all their work on that. Also, I mentioned earlier that AMC is having our board meeting tomorrow and the next day. It's our strategic planning session where we are discussing, how we move forward, and we're doing a lot on bridging the divide. How do we continue to come together? We did great work with this, several years ago on transportation, and we're picking different issues. This one is just now, how do we come together around issues that we all are concerned about, and we'll be having some conversations, I think, around public health and all of that. But it'll be great conversations. NACO is having the same conversations too, actually, about upcoming conferences. Both AMC and NACO are now taking it a conference at a time on whether these conferences were going to be in person or not, based on numbers and what we're seeing with the new Delta variant. So it's this one tomorrow will be in person, and I think AMC policy is still planned to be in person, but we're just taking all the future conferences a conference at a time. The NACO Central Region meeting is this afternoon at 1:15. I'm going to give a brief update there about what's going on with us, actually, and with our area of the region. And so that's also happening. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm done.
And thank you very much. Commissioner Ortega.
No report.
Commissioner Fretham.
No, she's not doing it alphabetically.
I didn't do it alphabetically. Just going around the table.
Perfect. Great. Well, so last week I had my first meeting as the co-chair of the Policy Action Group of the Leadership Committee of Gen Next, working with Sandra Samuels from NAS as co-chairs. Really excited about the work that they're doing to focus the work of Gen Next and also partner and align it with the work of other agencies to be more effective. Victoria may have more to say, but we also met with the NCCG group last week. This is the group of citizens around the water gremlin plant in White Bear Township and the surrounding communities, really continuing to be committed to ensuring that water gremlin is being a good neighbor and ensuring the health and safety of that entire community. And they are doing such great work in leadership and holding organizations accountable. I completed the process, our dialogue circles on Rice Creek Commons over the weekend. Great to have folks show up. A couple of parks, we did our virtual circles. Great conversation, going to be taking some time to process and pulling together information and hope to share back some of the learnings from that. Also, just wanted to know, in case you didn't notice, something different about me today. I am now the parent of a teenager because Signe turned 13 today. And she wanted me to wish her a happy birthday. And then I'll close up, since County Manager O'Connor gave a shout out to Ted Schenecker, I'll give a shout out to him as well, and the Public Works team for responding to a constituent's concern about some overgrown weeds right away. They went out there, it wasn't county property, but they said, we've got a mower, let's just take care of it, and then we'll reach out to the city to make sure that they are catching it in the future. So thank you to them for their quick and responsive work and for going above and beyond the call of their job to make sure that our residents are safe.
Thank you. You do look slightly different today.
I thought so.
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. Yes, the NCCG group is absolutely amazing. And what I think is really neat about how it has evolved and the fact that we were able to get the first TCD ban in the nation, primarily because of this group and their advocacy. But the relationships that they have built with the Department of Health and the PCA is just absolutely incredible, because they come in there, and when there are questions or comments or concerns on anybody's side, it's a safe place to talk about them and try to figure out how do you come to a solution rather than just being angry about something. Because the common goal is the health and safety of the community, and not just our community, but beyond that, with a very toxic chemical. So it's really fun to listen to the camaraderie as far as trying to do the best thing that they can. I was very pleased about the request for developer interest on both parcels A and B in Maplewood, and the fact that it is, as promised, and open-ended. Bring forward your ideas. I also think it's really important that we have the timeline as laid out, because there's still pieces that are coming in. And so there were a lot of questions that were coming to me about, well, what about the ecological survey, and what about this, and what about that? And having that timeline listed there, I think is really very, very helpful as far as decision making. So I want to thank staff for that. The Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, the block party on Saturday was so much fun. My grandchildren really loved it. And just the vibrancy of that corner is just pretty cool to see. And I pointed out that not only are there 3 cities, it's 1 county, 3 cities, and that they get 3 county commissioners because it just happens to be at that intersection. So they've got all of our attention, and gave a shout out to the whole board, but to Commissioners McGuire and Modis Castillo as well, because we've all made such a commitment there. And, you know, the proof is in the pudding as far as how it is changing. And we did a dedication of this little parklet, which I wasn't sure what that was to begin with, but it was so much fun because, you know, you fit something into the community that is there and something everyone can be proud of. It was very well attended. So I also participated in 3 of the dialogue circles regarding Rice Creek Commons, and thoroughly enjoyed and learned a lot, and came away with a sense of hope, which I actually came in with at the same time, but to hear other people talking about housing and the environment, all the things that are near and dear to our hearts here, and raising questions at the same time, was really an incredible experience. So we thank Commissioner Fretham for putting those together. And then finally, the Consortium of Lake Area Senior Services had their quarterly meeting, and just they spent a lot of time. Actually, they had an agenda, and then they asked me to speak to some of the things that were happening at the county, and then basically said, will you just tell us more? Especially regarding COVID and some of the, not just, you know, a vaccine or the masks, and those discussions obviously take place, but about, in general, how we view the changes that have taken place, the positive and the negative. Because there have been, as we all know, a lot of positive things that have come out of this. We wouldn't have chosen to have them happen this way, but you try to figure out how do you make things better than they were in the past. And so it's not just going back to normal, as we've all said many times. And that is also a very good group as far as making sure that seniors' voices are heard, but how it's interactive with all of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Last week, Tuesday afternoon, I had the opportunity to attend the press conference and reception for the Minnesota United's new CEO, Sherry Ballard, which is really exciting. It's the first woman to be the CEO of a Major League Soccer team in the country. She comes from Best Buy and corporate work to lead that work, but really exciting was the opportunity to talk to her about the community outside the stadium and how the team will engage with the community investments there. And she's committed to do that work and to further that bridge for many fans who will never have the opportunity to sit in those beautiful seats, but to actually do the work with community. And so that was a great opportunity, and we welcome Sherry Ballard to that new position, exciting for us here in Ramsey County as well. I also had the opportunity to present a community proclamation on behalf of all of us to the Corinne Martyrs Day celebration on Saturday, which was well received. And of course, that is a great weekend of activities representing, recognizing the martyrs that have gone before to bring them the freedoms and the continued battle in Burma. I also yesterday attended the groundbreaking of Amber Union, which is a really exciting project that we can all be proud of because we invested. I'll remind you, earlier this year, we appropriated $200,000 of IRF funds to that project. And Amber Union is an affordable housing unit that will go into the former Ties building, or previously some represented or called it the Grain building in Falcon Heights on the corner of Snelling and Larpenter, a great historic building that is being rehabbed, which will provide housing for 125 units at 50% AMI. So this is something that we can be really proud of in the partnership with the city and the county, the city of Falcon Heights. Our commitment, the Met Council put in money, as well as many other investors in the state of Minnesota. So we are moving ahead on the trajectory of investing in affordable housing in our community. And so that is underway and under construction. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for those exciting updates. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A couple things briefly. I had the privilege to sit in on a new employee orientation with Ryan. I know we all kind of rotate through that, but it's always a joy to do that and really help new employees really make the connection between the work they do and the goals and strategies and the vision and the mission and the governing board through management and and that was a great opportunity to welcome a bunch of new Ramsey County employees to the team. We had a Heading Home Ramsey Continuum of Care meeting last week, over 50 folks in that. We continue to really drive that with a lot of energy and commitment moving forward on addressing the larger holistic issue around homelessness and the unsheltered in our community. And then yesterday, a couple of us, Clifton Mass-Castile, Church Carter, were able to celebrate the kickoff of Right Track Plus. That was our first ARPA money that went out the door. I think Ling brought that to us about 10 hours after it was available. And yesterday we had a nice celebration with a lot of the interns that are going to be benefiting from that investment in partnership with the city of St. Paul and a number of other community partners. And then Congresswoman McCollum was able to be there to visit with some of the interns to really make that connection from the work she does at the federal level and trying to help support folks all the way down to actually seeing that money and the investment, it's going to make a difference in our community. So that was a fun celebration to be a part of. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks, all of you, for your updates about the work that's going on in our communities across the county. And beginning with that last one, I would also add a footnote to the Frogtown Community Center celebration for Right Track Plus, and that is that we were able to vaccinate 10 young people at that event as well. So all in concert with the ongoing challenges that we continue to address together. I would also say that it was a very, very motivational and exciting event with a panel of technology professionals, young technology professionals, in fact, who weren't very far removed from the participants in age. And the participants were starting their first day at work in various internships across the county. And we're excited, engaged, able to take part in a set of booths and information outside. They had lunch there. They were able to connect with these professionals. And I just want to say it was one of the most motivational events that I have participated in my time here at Ramsey County, to see those young folks ready to go, having been through Right Track, their initial intern experience, not yet fully employed, but still leaning in and to learn about careers and specifically about technology as a very part of their understanding of how they move themselves forward in our grand economies to come. So thank you very much, not only to our workforce team for this event, but also to our partners in the city of St. Paul and business and nonprofits, all of whom are engaging either in employing the young folks or providing information for them or supporting them as they move along their path on the Right Track Plus. So another exciting event at which Betty McCollum, our Congresswoman, joined us, and also the mayor, Commissioner Matas-Castillo, was there, although I know you had to take off before I could call on you for another event. But it was inspiring to walk from the Rondo Library down Dale Street and across a fantastic new bridge, which was built under the leadership of our Public Works Department. You spoke about Ted Shaneker and the work that he does. Well, he walked into the Dale Street Bridge project, an active and very alive, community-engaged piece of work, which we actually stepped back and took a little time for, more time than had initially been planned, so that we would be certain we had constructed, when we were done, a bridge that respected, reflected, and reconnected the communities along Dale Street, as well as those who travel through it. I know that you have all been past that bridge and hopefully have had the opportunity to go across it and to experience the widened sidewalks, the bump out crossings, the lights that are fitted to prioritize non-motorized travel, the reflection of the people, the buildings, the houses, the culture, the languages, the Lindy Hop, across the bridge, because you can follow the leaves and do the Lindy Hop as you cross. You know, the extent to which the professionals, whether they were technological professionals working on engineering, working on the arts, were able to partner with the community is just phenomenal. So I want to congratulate the community, thank the community for its outpouring of engagement and support as we walked through a transformative process in building the Dale Street Bridge, which transformed the bridge for all of us, but also helped to transform the manner in which we all do this work together. I'll note that there is a parklet there as well as you cross from the Rondo Library across to the school on the other corner, a small area in which a sidewalk has been constructed to accommodate for the incline to make it easier, you know, for those who may have some mobility concerns. It is a lovely area that has not yet been developed into what it will be, but we're looking forward to the benches, the plantings, the potential art in that area that will enliven that space. Just wanted to share with you how exciting it was to have partners and community there to launch this. And thank you to all of our staff, to those in public works, to those in communications, public health, workforce certainly, which played a very, very big part in ensuring that this would come about. So those are my updates, and I would like to share that following our board meeting, we do have a workshop, which was estimated to start at 10:30, flexible workplace policy here in the council chambers. It will start early, surprise, surprise. So we will have that. And then after lunch, we have a board workshop on transforming systems together, which will be in the county board office. There is a link on our website for that workshop. I believe Commissioner Fretham has the workshop up here this morning on flexible workplace policy. It will start at 10:15. And Commissioner Matas-Castillo will be guiding the workshop on transforming systems together in our county board office at 1:30. And again, there is a Zoom link on our website to participate. Attend that one by webinar. And now, our county board meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.